Now that we can add and subtract positive and negative numbers, we are going to look at working through some calculations that involve a string of additions and subtractions. We are going to use a number line to help us. We might have to work out a calculation like this. It looks quite complicated at first, but we are going to work through it one step at a time. We start at the beginning with -6. First we put our finger on the number line at -6. Now we can move on to the next part of the calculation. We have dealt with the -6. Next we look at the first operation symbol in our calculation. We are adding. Next we look at the sign of the number we are adding. Here we are adding +4. We are adding a positive, so we move 4 numbers to the right on the number line. Now we have worked out the add +4. Now we can move on to the next part of the calculation. Again we look at the operation symbol. We are subtracting. Now we look at the sign of the number we are subtracting. We are subtracting a negative number. When you subtract a negative number, you move to the right on the number line, so we move 3 numbers to the right. Now we have worked out the subtract -3 and can move on to the final part of the calculation. Again, we look at the operation symbol. We are adding. Now we look at the sign of the number we are adding. We are adding a negative number. When we add a negative number, we move to the left along the number line, so we would move 7 to the left. This is the final part of the calculation. Now we can read off the answer from the number line, -6. We can now write out the complete calculation. By taking it step by step and working from left to right, one part at a time, you can do very complicated additions and subtractions. Let's look at another one. 81 plus +11, subtract -4, subtract +7, add -3. We have moved to a different section of the number line. We start with 81. Put your finger on it on the number line. Now we have dealt with the first part of the calculation. We look at the first operation symbol. We are going to be adding. Next we look at the sign of the number we are going to be adding. It's positive. When we add a positive, we move to the right on the number line. So we move the finger 11 numbers up the number line. Now we have dealt with that part of the calculation, we can move on to the next part. Looking at the operation symbol, we can see we are subtracting. Next we look at the sign of the number, and we can see we will be subtracting a negative number. Subtracting a negative number moves us to the right on the number line, so we move 4 up the number line. We have now completed that part of the calculation. Again, we look at the operation symbol and can see we will be subtracting. Next we look at the sign of the number we are subtracting and can see we are subtracting a positive number. That means we will be moving to the left, so we move 7 numbers down the number line. We've completed that part of the calculation, so we can move on to the final part. Once more, we look at the symbol. We will be adding. Next we look at the sign of the number we are adding. Adding a negative number will move us to the left on the number line, so we move 3 down the number line. We have now finished the final part of the calculation. Now we can read off the answer from the number line, 86. That means we can write out the full calculation with the correct answer. By breaking it down into steps, looking at the operation symbols and the signs, we can do any number of additions and subtractions.